And hello, everybody, and welcome into Tigers Tonight. I'm your host, John Maddox, joined as always by the best co-host in all the land. We'll start with from the palatial Marley Manor here in beautiful, scenic, crime-free Hernando, Mississippi. Larry, how in the world are you this evening, sir?
I'm a little aloof, to be honest. 4-game losing streaks do that to you. And I'll be honest with everybody, it's just not a fun time. And football it should be fun, and right now it's not fun for anybody.
That's terrible. Football's the worst. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. Speaking of bad football, we bring in our friend Bryan Moss up in the great state of New Jersey, where Rutgers thrives. Well, where Rutgers plays.
Yeah,
I see you're repping the Devils tonight, and not the
yes,
not
yeah.
Rutgers.
The Devils are doing very well. We're on top of the Metro Division, so yeah, I got to rep the Devils right now.
All right. Well, as Larry said, football is terrible, and I hate everything about it and everyone involved with it. And yeah, there should be, as I said on Facebook, it should be illegal to play football in this country. But another rough one for Memphis as they fall 35-28 to UCF on Saturday. Bryan, we'll start with you and get your thoughts.
There's a lot. I mean, it's those little things that keep biting you. Missed. There was an interception. I wrote it down here somewhere. I can't remember if it was it was in the third quarter. Ladarius Polk again drops an interception. I texted you guys, pics of the running backs. Just running straight and not bouncing either to the left or to the right. I mean, it just, that one right there. I'm like, just bounce. I mean, look at that. Look at that gap.
So scene setter here. This was Memphis when they got the first time they got inside the 10-yard line. You're facing 3rd and 2, and I have so many problems with this, but number one, you're in shotgun on 3rd and 2. I'm not a fan. I
think on the 4th and 1 wasn't another shotgun.
Yeah, here we are with that. Let's look at that. But as I told you in text, and Larry, you can probably correct me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of folks remember when Paxton Lynch was here, and he got a lot of praise for being the player he was, and I mean some of it deservedly so. But he was coached for one read. And I think that's because they knew he wasn't the greatest at film study. But that play, that, kind of that mentality, I think is how our running backs tend to handle things, is they just go where the gap is. And if it's not there, that's too bad.
So some of this is just, you got to make a play. I mean, you're a college athlete. You go make a play. I understand that the run is supposed to go here. He's supposed to go off, but you go make a play. You go and all right, well, bounce it out. And you're a big boy. You've done this before. I try to think the kid at Eastern Kentucky that was Tim Lester. If he ever ran the hole that was designed for the play, it'd be the first time. He never did. He would run up and just kind of look around and just bounce off. And and that's what you should be doing, guys. I don't know. This was a game. And by the way, if you go and look at the stats, this game was dead even. I mean, Memphis had 433 yards. UCF had 427 yards. UCF had 24 first downs. We had 27 first downs. UCF had 29 minutes, 7 seconds of possession. We had 30 minutes, 53 seconds. This was a dead even game. I mean, dead even. The difference in the game was red zone opportunities, and we failed to score in our red zone opportunities. And if you go back and look at it, I think they were like 4 of 5 or something like that. Something like, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, or something like that. And we were like, or maybe they were 5 of 5. And we were like 4 of 6 or 7. That's the difference in the game. And what you guys are showing right here is attention to detail. We've talked about it from the beginning of the year till now. We talked about it last year. Lack of attention to details. What is this? This is simply a player who's coming up and he's not paying attention. He's not. You have to pay attention to the details and get down there. All right, if you come up, look. I mean, keep your head up. I mean, those are little things, guys. Little things that just add up every year.
Yeah, and Martin is the only one. If you watch this game, Martin is the Asa Martin is the only one. When he gets to the line, if the hole is not there, he'll bounce out. And he did that later in the game. And I want to say it was the fourth quarter when he did that. It was either late in the third or late in the fourth. I'm trying to look at my notes here. But yeah, there was nothing there. He bounced out, and instead of I think third and long, and then it ended up being third. I mean, instead of third and long, because he bounced. If he didn't bounce out, he bounced out, and then it was third and short, like maybe 3rd and 5. I'll have to figure out that play and send it to you. But he's the only one that has. I don't know if it's I don't want to say sense to bounce out, but he's the only one that has the knack to bounce out, and he's shown that over the course. And we got, if you have the other screenshots, there's some doozies when we talk about Seth's. I mean, this is the defense run right here. Next time we'll try to have some video, but if you look, the two linebackers, the left linebacker, I mean, he's kind of like a circle. He half circle. He blitzes that way. The right one kind of curls around and blitzes that way. And the middle is wide open. I mean, just wide open. I think this was the 62-yard run. If you have the next slide, look at that hole. I mean, I know I'm a big guy. I mean, I can waddle my way through that and get some yardage. I mean, it's crazy. What game is this? The 9th game or something like that?
Yeah.
And we're still talking about missed assignments, missed tackles. It's getting ridiculous right now.
Well, and if you look at this play, we'll go back. Larry and I were talking about this before we came on. There are lots of problems with this. There are numerous problems. And what sticks out to me is if your responsibility is to blitz around the edge, that's fine. But how does everybody get washed outside? And then what is 23 doing? Why is he outside the hash? If they're in pistol, he should be on the hash. And what was he looking at? Because what happened here is he stepped out, presumably, as Larry said, because the receiver over here on the left at the bottom was probably running a slant.
Or he could have hot. If you go back to the previous one, John, he 23. I'm assuming is the safety up here at the top. I'm assuming, but
he's right here.
All right, so he may have the hot, which you see the up back there. That may be he may be looking hot there. So this guy may have gone out, but what should have happened at this point is either the safety comes up and comes to the hash, or somebody has got to come to the hash because somebody has got middle responsibility. Somebody does, at least one, and usually two. So, I mean, again, they may have caught us in a good play, for what they did. But guys, that's egregious. I mean, at this point in the season, you shouldn't have a blown coverage like that.
So should this just be the poster for the season? Because, I mean, I've got so many problems with that, but let's move on. All right. This is Memphis was in the red zone. This is the drive where we missed the 26-yard field goal, if memory serves.
I believe so.
How do you not see that? I mean, things happen in a game. I get it. But I've got a couple problems here. Number one, that's fine. That block there is fine because that's what frees up Asa.
I want to point out something else up in the middle of the field. I don't know who the receiver is. He is wide.
Oh yeah, open. I didn't even see him. He had
right
snuck
behind the
defense.
official.
That looks like Aubrey.
Now look, this would have been a really hard throw with a defender breathing down your neck. No doubt.
No. I mean, this is all you got to do is sling this across the field. You just got to get this in the air because there is nobody positioned.
Well, we assume there's nobody there. We don't have the whole screen, but guys, I'm going to tell you that's open. Is that our Asa Martin 28? My old eyes. Yeah, Asa Martin's wide open. That's a walk-in. This guy, I don't think this safety can get over there.
No, he can't. This is what bothers me, and I texted you guys this. I think that sometimes, and I think we'll see it again here as soon as I click.
Okay, yeah, this one. Go back one more. That one is, if I'm not mistaken, this is the one where he rolled all the way. You know, he had that weird roll and rolled all the way across the field, and only got a few. I don't know if he got a few yards or not, but then didn't Howard miss the field goal? Did you mention that?
Yep. This is the drive.
Yeah. That's nice.
And you know, I mean, guys miss stuff all the time, but I think Seth is so focused on running. He has kind of got the Michael Vick thing going a little bit when Vick first got in the NFL. He wouldn't throw the ball. The second something broke down or the second it was a rollout, he only knew how to do one thing, and that was take off. And here's another example. I think that's Rock Taylor standing there wide open.
This one he ran it.
This is a rollout. This is third, and I think it was 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. He's going away from the defense. I mean, this is another one. You don't even have to square your shoulders to make this throw. You just take your right arm and flip it out there and let him go get it.
You know, it seemed like an overcorrection because in the beginning of the year, even last year, I'm guilty for saying this. I wish Seth would run more. I said that last year, and I said it in the beginning of this year. But now you overcorrected because now that it seems like he wants to run first, and that's you can't do that. I mean, swerve back the other way just a little.
Well, okay, let me ask this, and I don't know anything about the kid, but could this just be a situation where it's like, oh, you want me to run? Oh, well, hell, all right, here we go. I mean, I don't know.
And I think another part of it, guys, is probably, let's be fair, Seth has been under siege most of the year. And so when he gets outside, he probably doesn't feel like he has time to do anything else. But as a quarterback, like you're looking here at Seth, his eyes are inside. That's why he doesn't see, I think that's Rock. I can't see the number, but looks like Taylor's build. He can't see him. It's simple because if you just look at his head, he's looking downfield. He's not even looking. And to me, if that's me, that's my first read right there. Like that's read one.
Well, that should be, but that should be how it's coached. Because look right here, and again, I don't have the whole field here, but look what you don't see anywhere. There's no defenders, right? There's no defensive backs. So now the one thing, and I don't know, guys. I don't know where the line of scrimmage is. I see a couple.
It's that black line. So Seth was in the shotgun.
Okay, you're right. It's the black line.
Rolled.
So we don't have anybody downfield. Okay, what I'm seeing here is you've run your defensive backs off the line here.
Yeah,
I mean you've run.
Yeah, I just
that was actually I found it notes. That was Jay Ducker that was open right here because this is the 3rd and 19 from the 42. So this
where we ended up 4th and 16.
Yes. So instead of throwing it right there and getting a little extra yardage, because you're going to get more than 3 yards if you
you might get in the field goal range, fellas.
Yeah. So that's where he missed Jay Ducker on that one. And this was after the 12-minute delay. I know we're skipping some stuff that I wanted to talk about, but yeah, that's the 12-minute delay. That was the play right after the 12-minute.
So let's talk about that for a minute.
We could talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that. We won't have a guest tonight, unfortunately. He had to cancel, but we'll get to Tulsa here in a few minutes. But boy, do I have a lot to say about that 12-minute delay.
Before the 12-minute delay, though, let me put this in here because it was when it was 7-7. The going for it on 4th and 1 and from the 6-yard line, you can argue about the play, why you're in shotgun and stuff like this. But how many times have we heard the coaching staff say, I trust the defense, or we trust the defense? If you trust the defense when it's 7-7, why can't you trust the defense when it's 10-7? Just kick the field goal right there. I mean, that's what, a 23.
Guys, I told John this was a game where we never got the lead. And I think if we had just gotten the lead at some point, it may not have mattered, but it did feel that way. It felt like right. And we had so many chances. I think the fact that we never got the lead just it really deflated.
Yeah.
And I think if we could have just gotten the lead, and
you add in those 3 points from this slideshow right here, 4th and 16, you're leading 24-21 right now. If you would have kicked the field goal earlier in the
assuming he makes it, which that's from the 6, right? I understand, but yeah.
I don't have a problem going for it on 4th and 1 because what you're telling your team is we think we're tougher than the other guys. We think we're more physical, and that's fine. But don't line up in the damn shotgun like that. That's my whole problem with it.
If you're going to run it, all right, if you're going to, this is the whole thing. If you're going to run it, and we've done this a couple of times this year, line up under center with a fullback, running it straight ahead,
and they did it in this game later.
Yeah, they do it. They do it in the game later. I didn't see. I meant to take a picture of that.
You're not tricking anybody. This isn't like, oh, they may be thinking we're gonna. No, you line up. You say, I'm running right there, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And here we go.
All right. So the 12-minute delay.
Yes.
Number one. Everybody is hawking that they called it on Jean-Baptiste, the guy that got hurt. That wasn't the call. They called it on the next hit. When Hassel hit 37, that's when the flag came out. And if you go back, again, I get Seth's point in the post game that happens 10 times a game. People rob banks every day. That doesn't mean it's right. It was a good call. Now, was it crummy because of where it was and it was inside that? And now, look, that's the first time I've ever seen a targeting penalty called on a player inside the tackle box. Never seen that before. So it was a bad call in that respect, but I don't think it was the call that affected everything. I think it was that 12-minute delay because we had hawked our way down the field. Yeah, we were driving the football, and that delay happens. And look, Jean-Baptiste, who's the leader of that UCF defense, he was down, like he was hurt. Hassel knocked him in the next month, and I think it was, I didn't care for the call that much. I mean, again, it's the technically, and people get mad at me when I say it, but it's it's the right call. It's the rule that sucks. It's the rule that sucks, not the call. The referee made the right call, but the rule is terrible.
And the fact that it seems to be somewhat random. 1 week this is, and maybe that's part of the rule, but 1 week this is, next week this isn't. It just seems like from week to week as a player, you don't know what's going to get called. And I will simply say, I think that if you're going to make the call, make the call. The kid's hurt. That's fine. Like we understand injuries happen, but make the call, get the injury out the field. A 20-minute delay in sports is an eternity.
Well, and you guys know I go the opposite way with the officials. I don't, I'm not one of these, oh, the refs cost us the game.
No,
But when you can't figure out
incompetence
as a FBS, which I'm assuming means you have some level of experience, if you can't figure out where to spot the ball, you have no business being on that field. It should not take 10 minutes to figure out it's 2nd and 19, that it is a spot foul, and it is 15 yards from the spot the foul occurred.
Yes.
Like,
because I mean, if that flag wasn't flown, I mean, if they didn't call that penalty, Asa Martin had a first down on the 20-yard line. So instead of being on the 20-yard line, now you're on 39.
Yeah, because the foul occurred at the 24. Yes. So now you're on the 39. But my whole problem was the delay. I mean, the call was.
I checked. I had it on the DVR. It was actually 12-minute delay, but still way too long.
Well, that's an eternity.
Yes.
And
it killed Memphis's momentum.
Well, what we were talking about in the press box is, it's bad when you see players stretching while they're waiting.
That's another thing we should talk about too later on, not right now, is all these injuries. Are they training too hard? I really want to go into the strength.
I hope not.
Well, I mean, take a look at all
it's not showing on the field.
I mean, but anyway, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, later. Let's roll through these last couple of plays. So this is the 4th and 16. And again, if you look at Seth's head, it's inside. Seth on these 3 plays never looked outside. If you go back.
Yeah.
Head inside. Head inside. He's not looking in the flat. His head and his eyes are downfield. It is 4th and 16, and let's see. You've got a guy, about 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
He's 6 yards downfield, John. Like I could do. Look, it maybe 10.
Can he get 16 yards? I don't know.
No, but here's the thing. You're not going to give them the ball right here. They're going to be somewhere the hell down here. You've already gone for it. All right. And they're probably in some sort of umbrella coverage, which they should be, with their feet on the first down marker. Fine. Throw it. They may miss a tackle. Whatever. But the point is they're going to get the ball in the 20s instead of where they got it, which was on
the 39.
39.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say the call to go for it, to me, is just so aggravating.
It's the worst. It's the worst decision Ryan Silverfield has ever made. It trumps all the 2-point conversion again to East Carolina, the 2 points against East Carolina,
and the reasoning. I have to go back and watch the press conference, but I think I remember him saying, we trust the defense. That there's that word again. Trust if you trust the defense on the 39-yard line, why don't you trust the defense if you pooch it punt, or I wouldn't have mind if you just fake punted it and get an extra 10, 12 yards.
Here's my thing. And he said, well, at the 39 is a gray area. Okay. On 4th and 6, it is. That is a gray area.
Not at 4th and 16.
You have the number 2 punter in the country. And I am not exaggerating when I say that. Joe Doyle is the number 2 punter in the country, not in the AAC, in the nation. He's just behind Michigan State. Do you trust him? And even if to Larry's point earlier, let's say he kicks it out of the back of the end zone. They get the ball at the 25 instead of the 39.
20,
or the 20 instead of the 39. That
is 2 first downs.
Yeah.
If you think that doesn't freaking matter, you're crazy. I'm 100% certain. Okay, I'm going to say this right now. I'm 100% certain right now that if we give them the ball in the 20s, they probably don't score. I mean, they don't score a touchdown. And here's why I think that. Because our defense is very well rested. They've been sitting on the sidelines. And the other thing was, the momentum shift doesn't occur that way. You've given them the ball back. That's fine. they get the ball. But the way this played out, it was Memphis goes from inside the red zone to you get the ball on the 40. That is a huge shift in momentum. And this late in the game, there's 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. I mean, this set the stage for us going down 2 touchdowns, which was essentially the end of the ball game.
Okay.
I can't say it any better.
All right. Let's move on with this one.
Oh, God.
So this is the play right before the interception, right, Brian?
I believe so.
Yeah,
yes.
I think this is the play right before the interception.
No, this is the interception.
This is the interception. He was late on the ball.
So if he gets the ball there, but here again, here's another thing.
It's nearly a first down because you're only 5 yards away. There's no defender there.
And this is set up perfectly. You've got your top receiver, your outside guy. He's taking his guy deep. He's running a square in, so he's bringing the
safety
in with him.
Yep.
You've got somebody out here in the flat who I'm assuming Asa Martin was
right. He stepped up to cover Asa.
I don't know what he's doing here because he looks like this is a great angle because he looks like he only has one leg and he's falling backwards.
You've got Caden on a linebacker basically, and there is zero chance he can cover him. Like that should be your number. This should be option A. Now, I don't know if he's looking.
Nope. He's looking outside because you can see his eyes. His eyes are not in the middle of the field here. His eyes, and nobody can see me circling, I'm sure. His eyes are down at the bottom. And to be fair, that guy's open too, but he ain't as open as Caden was.
And look, quarterbacks miss plays all the time. But my point is he comes back to this. And his progressions, his progressions are – he's reading out and then back in when his timing on his progressions are clearly off. Because by the time he comes back,
it's 2 seconds, a full 2 seconds later, and Prescorn is running full speed. How far can you go in 2 seconds?
And so when in 2 seconds, I mean, I'm about let's see, Caden's at the 36. I've probably motored it to the 34 at this point. But what happens here is then the guy who's covering, and then you loft the ball, which has been a problem for Seth. He tends to throw very high, but that's because, again, although look at this pocket. What else could you ask the O-line to do? Asa Martin has nobody to block because everybody's doing their job. They didn't really shell because they're still man on the outside. But look at Asa. He's just standing there. Like literally, he's standing still. And you've got to deliver that ball on time. But again, I think, let's see, that looks like Ivory that's the receiver cutting in. Just from where Seth's eyes are, I think that was read one, which would have been good. He could have thrown the ball, and it would have been a first down. Because Ivory has, if you look at the corner down there, he's bailing because he's already given up inside leverage. I can't see if there's safety help in the middle or not. But, we don't
have enough screen. But the point is, John, if he delivers right now, even if there's safety help, he may not get a first down, but he's going to get real close. I'll be honest. It looks like he's hunting a big play. I don't know.
A lot of these, he's hunting a big play. I'm a firmly take what the defense gives you, and they're giving you the middle of the field right here.
I don't know how much bigger of a play you could hunt in this situation. You have your Mackey tight end semifinalist running wide open down the middle of the field. And even if there's safety help, which I don't think there is on this play, I can't count.
2 seconds. 2 seconds later, there will be.
I went to a Memphis City school, so I can't count that fast.
There's 10 guys there's 10 guys that I can count right now.
Okay, so then there is a safety.
There may be one more deep, but guys, it's completely irrelevant. Even if there is someone that's going to come up and step up, the point is you've got a free run at 8, 9, 10 yards. He's probably going to get a first down. I mean, and all of a sudden you're in their territory. You're down 7 with 10 minutes to go. What the hell else do you want?
Yeah, I think that some of this is on coaching, and Seth is probably doing as he's told, and that's take that first, your first read is your first read, even if you see Caden Priestcorn streak down the field. But again, he can't see him because his eyes are locked on his outside receiver. Like if you look at his head position, he is locked.
Okay.
I think that's Ivory out there. He is locked on Ivory. He's not looking at the middle of the field.
But look at what we've done today. We have had 5 misreads just in this little thing that we did today.
But see, they're not misreads. They are the right read. As my buddy Sid used to say, and we used to joke about this in church settings, right doctrine, wrong application. And, I get it. Ivory is your first read there. But you've got to see it's not like Caden is Calvin Austin and he's 5'11". Like Caden's a big dude. He's 6'4", 6'5".
Right.
So you've got to have visual of him. But Bryan, to your point, if you throw the ball here to Ivory, it's close to a first down because Ivory's running away from his defender. There's no safety help over the top, or if he is, he's out of the screen. So it's 7-8 yards. And then Larry, I think you said it best. Now you're at the 40. Let's say he doesn't get the first down. He gets tackled when he catches it. You're at the 44-yard line, 1st and 10, down 7. But instead, 2 seconds later, you hold the ball, and then you chunk it too high, and they pick it off. And that was basically the ball game. Yeah,
because they drove down and scored a touchdown. That's the end of it.
Yep. All right, that's enough. But anyway, so that is just kind of a microcosm of the last 4 weeks. So Memphis falls to 4-5. They need 2 of these last 3 to gain bowl eligibility. I don't know. I'm not certain they can do it, but we'll see. I mean, Thursday night is going to tell the tale, because I think, Larry, it was you that said you don't want to go into SMU needing to win for bowl eligibility.
Nope, you sure don't. Because I'll tell you what I did see from SMU playing Houston, they can score.
Jesus.
I mean, look, they're gonna score points. I don't trust our offense to score with them. I don't.
Well, we can't get in that kind of game, but we'll get to SMU later.
Well, I know, but the point is you were looking ahead. So that's what puts the pressure on Thursday. Because if you don't get it done Thursday, I mean, guys, we could be seriously looking at the first time staying home since 2014.
2013.
13, excuse me.
Because 14 was the Miami Bowl, whatever it's called.
My deepest apologies, everyone, since 2013.
Yeah, so it'd be the first time in, we've got technically 8 straight bowls, although I don't really count last year. But, and then Chris Howard misses 2 field goals, his first 2 misses of the year. And it was just a case of everything.
One to me is understandable. Is the first one, it's like,
well, it was a terrible angle. I forget.
It was a terrible angle, and that was a result of Seth, doing that weird, super, 150-yard U-turn of a rollout. I mean, it just, this game is just like everything that we saw this year that could go wrong. It went wrong in this game.
And credit to UCF. They came in here and did what they needed to do. It wasn't the prettiest work of art in the world, but it was enough to get the job done. RJ Harvey is an outstanding running back. I was really impressed with Mikey Keene. I thought he did a nice job. And it's not about, as I always tell people when they start complaining about, he was, they don't ask how, they ask how many. And you just want more on the left than the right column. And, frankly, that's what UCF did. They did enough to win the game, and we helped them quite a bit. We didn't do the things we needed to do. So, all right, well, that's behind us. thankfully. But, I think what bothers me, one more thing here is, not only are we now, 15-2 or 2-15 all time against UCF? Is that right? 2-15. Yeah. But that was it. Unless the world shakes out and we end up in the Big 12, that's our last regular season game against UCF. And that's not how you want to go out. But again, just my opinion. All right, moving on. Thursday night, Memphis will take on Tulsa from Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. The game will be on ESPN. It kicks off at 6:30. It's wrestling night at the stadium. Before the game, they'll have I think Lawler's bringing in Ricky Steamboat and Lex Luger and a couple other guys, Coco Beware, to sign some autographs. And they'll have some wrestling, so that'll be fun. But guys, this ain't going to be fun. This is serious business, and I'm worried. Jeb just mentioned it in the text here. I'm worried about the crowd because I think calling it a crowd is going to be insulting to crowds. I'm worried for a lot of reasons about this game. Bryan, we'll start with you.
Thoughts, predictions? What are we going to do?
Sorry, thoughts on the game.
Thoughts on the game. I really feel there may be 13, maybe 18,000 max. I may be stretching it, but like a 13 range. First thoughts of the game. Memphis, just like all these games, Memphis can win. It's just, will they stop shooting themselves in the foot? Will the play calling, coaching decisions, would you stop thinking you're playing on the PlayStation and just call a real football game? I mean, because some of these calls, it baffles the mind. It really does. But if they just call a normal game, play your game, they can win. It won't be easy because Tulsa has played some folks tough. Cincinnati, they only lost by 10 against Cincinnati. They played Ole Miss close, and that was at Ole Miss.
And so, if Davis Brin doesn't get hurt in that game,
I'm telling you, this Tulsa team can bite you. You can't look at their record and be like, Memphis got this one. No, it's not the case. They're a decent ball club, so I think it's going to be close.
I mean, you look at the numbers, and I just threw these together really quick earlier. On offense, it's pretty much even, except like that fourth down thing is remarkable. Tulsa's 67%, and we're 47%. But we have way more attempts than they do on fourth down. But you look over here at the defensive side of the ball. Tulsa's given up 226 yards on the ground a game. We say, my God, are we tired of hearing me say it yet? We got to run the ball. Like, they are coming in giving up 226 yards on the ground.
Not only run the ball, but have the correct person running it. It just seems to me that in certain situations, you have the wrong running back out there.
Who did I tell you was the key to the season before the season started?
Asa Martin, right?
Yep.
That's I would start him. He's I don't want to say he has more.
Look, guys, he is clearly, if you're a defender, he is the guy that you're scared of. And here's why. Not only, and this is not to take away from any of our other running backs, he is the guy that can change direction. He's a little bit faster than Brandon Thomas. He's also a really good wide receiver. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. And he's the guy that if you get him one-on-one with a linebacker, it's over. It's game over. And so as a defensive player, if you see Asa in the game, it's different than if you – and I don't know enough about Smith because I haven't seen him enough to know.
He's not. He's a shifty back. He's going to
okay.
be.
So again,
Yeah.
but of the primary of Ducker, Thomas, and Martin, that's the guy, and that's that to take anything away from those other guys. Okay, but Asa is the guy. He can absolutely do things the other guys can't do. I mean, we're looking at a running game right here, John. You're bringing it up. Hell, your quarterback's your leading rusher. Guys, well, I got nothing for this.
But here is my point. Yeah, Seth has carried the ball 111 times, and Brandon Thomas is next at 75. Asa is averaging 5.8 yards a carry. Ducker is averaging 4.7 yards a carry.
But who's starting? The guy that has 3.5 yards per carry.
And I'd have to go back and look, but when are you playing them? In what situations? I mean, I'm befuddled, as the old folks like to say. I'm just befuddled. I can't understand it. And look, I am not the guy that second guesses coaches and calls folks out. That's just not my personality. But we have seen this over and over again. And Bryan, we've texted back and forth. Why is Ducker not getting the ball more? Who has the two longest runs of the team this year?
Ducker.
Asa Martin, Ducker at 50 yards, and Asa Martin at 45.
And again, we're not poo-pooing Brandon Thomas at all. He's a tough runner. He around the goal line. I like having Brandon around the goal line. But in the middle of the field, just pure dynamics, Asa Martin is the guy that scares you. I'm just telling you.
And when you look at this, it's even more baffling. Martin and Ducker combined have 4 more carries than your quarterback. And look, we harped on Seth last year about running the ball, and I'm glad to see him run more. I wish we'd run more RPO with him, or maybe speed option to the wide side of the field. My second least favorite play in the world is the speed option to the short side, which we ran twice. My least favorite play in the world is that stupid straight toss that Les Miles used to run all the time. God, I hate that play. But if you're going to use Seth in the running game, get him out in space. Trust him to make the right decision on the pitch. But it's befuddling to me that you have a guy averaging 5.8 yards carry, another guy averaging 4.7. And if we're being real, they can't see the field. Like, they're not ever out there, comparatively speaking. Brandon Thomas has been on the field 75 plays. Ducker 63 and Martin 52. And Martin missed a game. Don't forget that. He missed, which one was it? What was the game? Tulane. He missed a Tulane game. Yeah. But this is a problem, and I fear that this is going to be a problem that rears its head on Thursday night because, again, look at the numbers. All I got to do is show that. They cannot stop the run. Is Memphis going to be willing to run the ball? Because look at their pass defense. They're only giving up 176 yards a game. And Bryan, you hit the nail on the head earlier. They played Ole Miss, who is one of the best offenses in the country, and played them tough.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of the reason why they're only giving up so many yards passing is because people are running all the hell over them. But I mean, you can't discount that, John.
No, I mean it's true, but again, they're making plays when they have to make plays, and they are doing what is asked of them. They are doing the things that the coaches say, hey, people are going to run all over us, so we're only going to have a limited set of plays in which to make a play. Well, they're making a play when they've got to. And the Memphis pass defense, not so much. Bryan, I think you said it before the show tonight. LaDarian Polk drops the interception.
Yeah. Another one.
another one that could have changed the flow of the game, although they end up punting. But still, he intercepts that. You don't know how far he runs it. You don't know, you can't really tell how that turns out. But, and I agree with you, Larry, that Tulsa teams, I haven't looked at the number of rushes versus passes, but I'd be willing to bet it's almost double because teams figure out they can't stop the run. But my question is Memphis going to be willing to run the football? And I don't mean with Seth. I mean, I want Seth to get a few carries, but your quarterback should be running to keep the defense honest. That should not be unless you are Navy or Air Force or whatever number of teams run the option. Your quarterback's first thought should not be the dominant runner. He should run when he has to and on a few design plays. And here's my other thing. If you're going to run with the quarterback all the time, what's wrong with Ryan Glover every now and then? Save Seth from hits.
Or Tevin.
Absolutely.
Or Tevin. Because now you're at the point you could play Tevin because we have 3 games left. You can play Tevin all 3 weeks. And he still gets to keep his red shirt.
Yep.
But we have to be willing to run the football, and not just run the football, guys, but we have to be willing. When Tommy West was here and he talked to D'Angelo about this, he called them Sunday yards. And what that meant is D'Angelo was willing to go get the tough yards and to, on 3rd and 4, get 5 yards and be happy and not be upset with himself because he didn't get 25 yards. That always reminds me, and I love telling this joke because it's my favorite John Maddenism ever. He was talking about Leroy Horde, who played for the Vikings. He said, Leroy's a consistent guy. When it's 3rd and 2 and you need 2 yards, he's going to get you 3 yards. And when it's 3rd and 7 and you need 7 yards, he's going to get you 3 yards. That's just my favorite Madden joke ever. But Memphis has to be willing to, if it's 4th and 1, line up in an I formation. You got Caden Priestcorn. Let him block, or bring one of the big boys off the bench, a defensive lineman. I mean, can you imagine being a linebacker and seeing Wardelius Ducksworth coming at you, or Hamilton, or anybody on? Because that's what a lot of these teams do when they need fullback, right? They just tell the big defensive lineman, line up behind the quarterback and hit the first guy you see. That's it. So is Memphis going to be able to do that? To do the tough things, to not get cute and not get fancy. Offensively, we don't know if Bryan is going to play. Of course, that's a game time decision, as we all know. We know how that works. So we don't know if he's going to play, but if he does, does that change how Tulsa does things? You are seeing me here in real time, not even know who we're playing. I'm the worst. Does that change anything? Because they've got Memphis coming up and they are fighting for bowl eligibility. They've got Memphis, South Florida, and then Houston. Of those 3, I think Houston's probably not. If there's one that's doesn't feel like a winnable game, it's probably that one.
Yeah.
So they feel like, Larry, they can win this game. And
I feel like they've got to.
And Memphis has to be willing to be tough. And
this is a must-win for both schools.
Yeah.
Well, and look, let's say it both coaches are. I think one coach is probably a lot warmer than the other coach, but I mean, both coaches are feeling a warm booty, right? I mean, let's say it for what it is, right? I mean, and so the coach that comes out of this game with a win is probably feeling a little better than the coach who loses, right? I mean, and I know that you say, well, duh, but my point is that this is a big game for the coaches too. And so one of those coaches is going to have to put that aside and forget about that and just concentrate and stay in the moment. And which coach can do that?
See,
look, players know which coaches keep a cool booty. They do. We know because we can feel the game when the game is called. You're like, oh, he's losing it over there, and you can feel it. I'm telling you.
If you have to win, you have got to be balls to the wall. Like you know.
But John, here's the thing. You're looking at it one way, and I'm 100% with you. I would just bring everything and the hell with it. But here's the thing. What'll happen is one of these coaches could get a lead and then play not to lose. I'm just telling you, like stuff like that happens.
Yeah, you can't play.
Bryan, that's so easy for us to say.
But you know what? If that happens again, that would be the 4th time this year.
Yep.
I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3. My bad. The 3rd time this year that Memphis has had a lead and has given it away. And if
big
that, a big lead.
And it happened 3 times last year.
Yeah. So that's 5 times so far in 2 seasons.
Yeah. Guys, look, I don't know. Like, and for the record, I will be out of town, and I tried like the dickens to get my flight changed to get back in town to go to this game. I think there's going to be a small crowd. It's going to be. I don't want to make a comparison to the Tommy West 4,400 game.
That would be 4,100 club.
Excuse me. And I know that you're a proud freaking member.
That's right.
Anyway, and I was not there that night either because I was traveling.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and
that was a bad night.
But if this night goes like that night did, then I don't want to. I know we're not supposed to talk about where we'll be. We're just not supposed to get into that. But one thing I did want to get into, and we can move on. We can do all of our pregame, but before we leave, I do want to talk about the stuff that Austin was tweeting
yes,
out.
We'll get into that here in just a second. All right, so 6:30. The latest trends have been 3.5 hours. So I will say at 10:09 p.m., Bryan Moss, you will look up at the Simmons Bank Liberty Bowl Memorial Stadium Rex Stockery Field scoreboard, and it will say
Memphis 33, Tulsa 30. 33-30.
And I'm going to bold prediction.
Bold prediction. Oh, will this finally be the game? Memphis hasn't had a 100-yard rusher yet this year, have they?
I don't believe so.
Well, it's kind of I guess an easy bold prediction since my grandmother can run on Tulsa. But yeah, I'll say let's go 125 yards. I'm going to say a Memphis running back will have 125 yards.
Larry?
Well, let me start by saying that Bryan's crazy. Okay. So, the line is Memphis -6. I think that's probably about right. I've got this one 30. I'm gonna say 36-28. Memphis. They should win this game. I don't see any reason why we don't. Other than we just little things again.
Little things and poor decisions.
Yeah, poor decisions. Poor decisions, not prepared, all of this. I will simply say I think that if Memphis doesn't win this game, we definitely have better personnel. And that's not taking anything away from Tulsa.
On paper, they shouldn't be close. That's just my opinion. But
no, it should not be close. You look at it on paper, it should not be close. This should be. We shouldn't even be talking about this. This should be a 45-17 game. It should be, guys, but it's not going to be. And that's what's frustrating. As far as bold predictions, I'll say I think that Memphis gets has a special teams turnover. We get a special teams turnover.
I was going to say.
I mean, we actually generate a turnover this week on special teams. How about that?
All right. So my bold prediction is a safety, that Memphis gets a safety. That's my bold prediction.
By a safety.
Everybody's going to hate me. 28-24 Tulsa. I just don't think we are mentally. I don't think we are mentally in it anymore. And what I don't mean guys have checked out or guys aren't playing hard. I think the problem we have, with all apologies again to Chris Crawford, is tight booty holes. Everybody is so worried about making that big mistake that you end up making the big mistake. When that's all you're thinking about is we can't make the mistake, we can't make a mistake, you make a mistake. You know, I mean, I want to be wrong, but you know, I mean, I'm a guy that looks at history, and I have seen nothing the last 4 weeks that has shown me that Memphis can win a tough football game. Nothing. I haven't seen anything that Memphis can win a tough, tight game. And this is going to be one of those games. This ain't Temple walking in here. This ain't South Florida walking in here. You know, we're like, oh, well, it should be a blowout. Well, if you go back, and I've already closed it, and you look at the raw numbers, you just look at the numbers. This is going to be a close game because you're scoring 33.9 on offense. They're giving up 33.2. You're giving up 31.6. They're scoring 30.2. You know, I mean, and yes, on paper, this is a game that Memphis should win handily. This is a game that Memphis should win easily. We are bigger, we are stronger, we are faster, but I think we are in our own heads. And when you get in your own head, again, that's when you tend to make mistakes.
And to me, that's where you need to, knowing that the players are feeling that way, you need to call just a regular sound football game. You
simplify things.
Simplify things. Don't be cute. Don't go for 4th and 87. You know, just call a no. You're not playing, NCAA 14 on the PlayStation.
You know, whenever people say that, I hearken back to the first time we beat Ole Miss when Hugh was here, and they went for, and they hit it, but I think it was the third play of the game. They did a halfback pass, and I think I texted Larry. I was like, Ole Miss is in trouble. Like, if that's in your bag that early, you're in trouble. And then they tried that stupid Nkemdiche fourth down run thing. Ole Miss didn't think they could win that game, and so they came out and they figured they had to throw everything they had at us early, and I'm afraid that's what Memphis is going to do. This is yet another week where you're not going to win the game in the first quarter, but you can sure as hell lose it in the first quarter. Again, I'm not questioning the guys' toughness. I think that goodness knows they have fought their asses off this year. Tooth and nail, they have fought.
You're talking about mental toughness, John.
I'm talking about when you get punched in the mouth.
Yeah,
that's
a team thing. That's not an individual thing. You got to believe that the guy next to you is going to do what it takes to. He's going to do his job, and that is you getting on the field in practice and knowing what somebody's going to do, not thinking it. You're not thinking the game. You're just, I don't even have to think about it. He's going to do his job. And what I'm seeing right now is a whole lot of guys that are looking around going, okay, they're trying to do more than they should. And that's what you're saying, Bryan. And John, you're saying the same thing.
That's it.
They're trying to do more than what they should be doing. And if we go back, and we're not going to do this, but if you go back and look at that wide open hole, that was probably caused by somebody thinking, I got to get over there to make a play when it was somebody else's job. And he abandoned his spot.
You got to do you. And Bryan, I think you're absolutely right. I think that simplification is what's called for here.
Mm-hmm.
Seth gets 2 reads, and if neither one's there, he tucks and run. Your defense, no exotic defenses. Make it an all-star game. Make Tulsa drive it down the field, especially if Bryn doesn't play. Make it, and I say an all-star game like the Pro Bowl, where they just basically shell up and nobody blitzes. Let them have their yards. Make them drive down the field. Put your guys in positions to not have to think, to not have to worry about what the other guy's doing. Because just like in basketball, zone defense covers a lot of weaknesses, covers a ton of weaknesses. You don't have to, in a perfect world, you don't have to worry about getting burned deep. You should always have help. Rush 4, drop 7, bring 5 every now and then, drop 6, stay in nickel, and just get back to basics, because basics is how Memphis wins this game. If Memphis comes out and tries trick plays and asking guys to do things that they're not that they don't normally do, then I think Memphis is in trouble. But so, all right, well, let's move on, because I do want to touch on a situation that happened on Saturday that's just kind of a microcosm of a larger problem, I think. For those who don't know, it was homecoming. There were several former players there. Desmond Bain was there. Anthony Miller was there. Calvin Austin was there.
Was
there were
Gibson there too?
Yeah, a couple other guys were there. So I think it was in the first half. They throw Calvin Austin up on the Jumbotron. There's just one small problem. That wasn't Calvin Austin. And that happens. Mistakes happen. I mean, I hang out in the press box. It's no secret. Mistakes happen. Folks show the wrong guy all the time. I mean, it's not that big a deal. But the vibe I am getting is that it is more than that. It is not that Calvin's the wrong person, got thrown up on the video board. I think that's just the face of, and again, this is what I've heard. This is my opinion. I think that we are not doing a great job of involving our alumni. And take that for whatever you want it to mean. I know Anthony Miller spoke to the team on Friday. And guys, we've had a good run here where we've had some damn good players, and we need to honor that. And, I'll just throw another example out there. Look, I'm very glad that Danton is getting his number retired. I think it's fantastic. It is ridiculous that they are doing that at the North Alabama game. It is ridiculous that you are doing that at that game. And I don't know where the problem lies. I don't pretend to know. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not in those meetings. I don't pretend to know. But it is evident that there is a problem. And it's not just football. And It's not just sports. It's in general. And I see it from, I'll be very blunt here. I see it from the alumni band position. When I was not doing the announcing, we couldn't get 20 people to show up. And I think it's because people don't feel like Memphis is a special place that holds a place in their heart. If I'm being just brutally honest, I don't think Memphians or former Memphis alumni, for whatever reason, I don't pretend to know, I don't think they have the pride that other places have in being an alumnus.
Yeah, there's more that needs to be done. I mean, look at that Calvin situation. When it was obvious that the wrong person was shown, why didn't you fix it? Why didn't you find Calvin, who was more than likely standing right next to everybody else there? I mean, all the former players. Fix your correction. I mean, fix your mistake. You could have easily, said, on the Jumbotron or whatever, sorry, this is the real Calvin. It's something to that effect. Another thing that they did to Calvin is the Memphis football Instagram page. had photos of everyone that came. Well, not everyone, a few players that came back. He wasn't listed on that one either. So I mean, that's like strike two. To me, where's the? I mean, I know some people don't like statues or anything, but I think there's got to be something at the Liberty Stadium, a Ring of Honor, some type of memorial park with plaques of great Memphis players in years past. Something like when you go to Yankee Stadium, you have a memorial park there, and it has all the great Yankees, and it has a little plaque that tells them about. There's got to be something that folks can get excited about, that alumni can get excited about to come back. There's got to be more that that Memphis can do. There really is.
Because here's what I'll say. Most, and I don't know how Memphis does it, but most schools have a lounge where the alumni meet before the games. And normally you have to join that group.
We have it. It's called the M Club,
and it's a very nominal fee, and a lot of times the former players are comped that membership.
It's a good point.
Yes, it is. About the 2020 layoffs. Yeah, we're not going to get into that. That was a horrible. I remember that day like it was yesterday. But the bottom line is, so normally what happens is, as far as free tickets, and I know that was brought up, normally tickets, one of the things that when you're a new alumni of a school, one of the things that does surprise you is you don't get in the games for free necessarily. You have to actually call and make arrangements, and that did surprise me. But normally it's not a problem. You get there, they let you in, or you get a sideline pass or whatever. Sometimes you do have to make a donation in order to do that. And that's just the reality. But my point when I tweeted out that Laird Beach need to fix this is the communication, and what you guys have already talked about. The communication between the AD and the players has to be paramount. And he's got to, I still get stuff from Tech, hey, alumni, I don't ever go. But the point is I get invited. I'm invited every year. And one of these days when I get old, I'll probably older than I already am. I'll probably go just because, why not? But the point is the communication in this case, Laird, and I hope he did, reached out to Calvin. Hey, let's talk about this. What's going on? Talk about, who is, what's the problem? How can we fix it? Let's get together and make this right, whatever it is. And a lot of times alumni also have to meet halfway on this thing. They have to say, okay, well, we understand that, every expectation, not everything can be met, right, guys? I mean, you can't, just because I want to go to a game doesn't necessarily mean I get a free ticket. But you should get a free ticket every now and again if you want to go to a game. Or if you make an arrangement, say, hey, I've got a bye week. I'd like to go to the game. Can I go to the game? And then they send you a ticket. Yes. Or they get you a ticket. This isn't hard. You give them a few extra things here or there. I've been thinking about this all week. Like, how difficult, John, is it to get, I mean, when you guys do the alumni band, did they give you guys free tickets for that?
Yes.
Exactly. Yep. How difficult is it?
Now our friends and family have to pay, but we get a free ticket.
Right. But the member gets a free ticket.
Absolutely. Right. So I'll just say a couple things in regards to this. The first thing I will say is I had a rather lengthy, and if you follow me on Twitter, you saw most of it, conversation with one of our best fans. And I want to say that up front.
Really is.
He is one of our very best fans. But what people have to realize is college sports is no longer about the name on the front of the jersey. College sports is a business, and it is about the cash. And if you don't take care of your, look, let's call it like it is. We could fairly say that Calvin Austin, Kenneth Gainwell, and DeAngelo Williams, and fill out a name, are our best employees.
Yep.
You know what you have to do to keep good employees and to keep them engaged and interested? You have to engage them and you have to make them feel wanted.
100%.
And backing that up, fans are not going to support a team that A, isn't winning, and B, isn't putting a good product on the field, an exciting product on the field. It's unfortunate, but it is just where we are. Sports are now content. Let me say that again. Sports are content. And that's why these networks pay so much. Do you think they pay because they like the uniform Alabama wears every Saturday? No, they pay because they know that content will draw eyeballs. And that folds down into the stadium experience. You have to give people a reason to go. The days of people just going, oh, you know what? Let's go to the Memphis game. That's just not, it's not going to happen right now. So you have to because if you get the alumni involved, I mean, we all know what an influencer is, right? Like, it's somebody on Instagram or whatever, Instabook, whatever platform you want to talk about, that has tons of followers that says, hey, look at me. Here's where I am. I'm at the Memphis game. You guys should all be here too. Do you know how you get people excited? Is Desmond Bain being on the sidelines and going, hey, everybody needs to be here. This is big. Because don't we remember back, as much as I harped on Cal, but don't we remember when the basketball team, and I'm not picking on the Memphis basketball team, they may have been there, I don't know. But don't you remember when the whole team not only used to come, but they sat in the student section? And so now you've got people that want to be there on the off chance they'll bump into CDR. And if you don't take care of your alumni, they're not going to help you. And that is what they should be doing. You take care of your alumni. Because, look, I'll be honest, the media, we are very well taken care of at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. We get a good meal. We have access to anything we need. We have great sports information people. If we need something, all I got to do is send an email, pick up a phone, or shoot a text, and I get what I need. It should be that way. More like the athletes should be much higher in the pecking order than a dumb podcast host. And I feel like sometimes it's not that way. And again, this is not what happened with Calvin. Is just like I showed that picture of the guy running through that huge hole and saying this should be the poster for the season. That's just a prime example of what is going wrong right now at the athletic department. And it's not, look, I'm also going to say this, just like I tell you about the coach. It's not one guy's fault.
Right.
Because, Larry, you said earlier that Laird Veach needs to pick up. No, Laird Veach does not need to pick up the phone, but somebody in that athletic department
somebody does. Right.
And
he needs to make sure it happens.
Because that's when you're the manager, again, when you're the CEO, let's talk about it like it is. It's a business. When you're the CEO, you are working on the business and not in it. And as I said earlier, if Memphis does not get better in the business aspect of things, the attention to detail, there that is again.
Yep.
Then you damn well better believe that coaches are in this for a business. And, I want to close with this and I want to address all you got to do, folks. Okay. First of all, what did we figure out? Ryan Silverfield would be owed what, $3 million-ish, roughly, somewhere through there. So $3.5 million.
Right? He's got 3 more years.
Yeah. And we'll just say 3.5. And then we'll say, although this is probably low, another $750 for the assistant coaches. Because I think a couple of them are on longer contracts. I don't think they're all on 1 year's. All right. So now let's just say it's 500,000, whatever that number is. So now you're at $4 million. A new coach, inflation again, and the market, A new coach is going to be 2, probably.
More than paying Ryan.
Yeah, well, I don't think it'll be 3 because Mike topped out at 2.7, I believe it was. So let's just say it's 2. So we're at what? We're at 6. That staff, you're going to have to bump assistant pay. That's a huge problem at Memphis right now. And Bryan, we've talked about this. We know firsthand that it's a big problem. So let's say you got to have $1 million for assistants. It's probably not that much, but let's
actually it's more.
Well, let's just say it's $1 million.
2.5 or 2.7 is what Memphis is paying right now for assistants.
So you're at 8.5. Memphis brought in $7 million in TV money last year. And Memphis has to come up with a portion, and we don't know how big it'll be, but it's going to be a piece of this stadium expansion pie. Whatever it ends up being, there's a piece. So that, and Larry, you did have a great point that sometimes you have to make the tough decisions. And you have to look at this and go, okay, if you keep Josh Pastner around another year, another 2 years, and then you get rid of it, is the bump in morale going to offset your financial losses? Because that's what you have to do. You have to make that tough decision to say, as people have said to me, well, what good is it to expand the stadium if nobody comes? Well, you're committed to expanding the stadium. You are, and John, I get what you're saying, but you have committed to the stadium, and they're going to hold you to that. Mayor Strickland, Bill Lee, and they should, because you committed to this. You are the primary tenant. You're committed to this. And again, we don't know the financial, because all that honestly hasn't been figured out. So you're committed to you're what you call in poker pot committed. So now you have to decide. And again, I know how coaches are paid. They're not paid out of TV money. I know, but I'm trying to simplify things here and be a little simplistic. You're saying, all right, we are going to give up a year of television money to fire the coach, hire a new coach, and as some of our message board folks have said, you're going to have a bunch of transfers, you're going to have a bunch of lost recruits. Well, you know what? If you go 5-7 or 6-6, you're going to have that anyway.
I just question, and again, this is, I'll make an analogy. I'll make an example of this. There was one year, and I hope this works out this way. There was one year that the Cubs had a manager for 1 year. They fired him. It was Rick Renteria, too, who it was, and hired Joe Madden. And Joe Madden ended up winning the World Series for the Cubs. But my point in all this is that it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair what happened to Rick Renteria. And we're going to get a lot of that, John, of this isn't fair. This isn't fair. I'm going to say it like this. Sports isn't fair. There's no fair here. I think, and I'm not espousing for or against the coach, and I'm with you. My question, if we do fire the coach, my only concern, guys, is this. And I just have to ask this straight up. And this is just a question, it's open-ended. Are we, as the AD, ready to hire a coach the way we were ready to hire Fuente?
We had an interim AD, if memory serves, when we hired Fuente.
Yeah, and that was a good thing because that was what we needed. Actually,
I might be misremembering, but no, I don't think RC was there.
And no, he was there. He was just on his way out because he had effectively quit on the plane coming back from Southern. That's a fact. I know somebody.
Yeah, and I remember because I remember Brad Martin sitting across. Famously sitting across from Jimmy Sexton and telling him to his face, "You're not dealing with RC anymore."
Right.
But I just want people to understand that this is not as cut and dry.
Right.
Like, to me, the worst thing that could happen is Memphis goes 6-6.
Yep.
that makes a tough situation even harder.
But but we shouldn't have to bottom out to make a tough call.
But we shouldn't. But we have backed ourselves into this corner. And the other thing that people have to remember, we have a new president.
Yeah, I know.
And I'll just say there's a chance we may have a new AD, because it's no secret that Laird Veach is interviewing for the Mississippi State job. He's an SEC guy through and through. He's done a nice job here, but he may move on. And if he does, great. And if he doesn't, that's fine too. I don't really care one way or another. I don't concern myself with that.
Right. We'll hope the best for him, whatever. But
yeah, but now what you've done is you have backed yourself into this corner where if you go 6-6 and you fire the coach and he achieves, and again, fan expectation and booster athletic university leadership expectation are two completely different things, because everybody wants to fire the coach. The most popular guys in college football are the guy you're going to hire and the backup quarterback. Yep. And that's just how it works.
Yep.
But from an administrative standpoint, you have to take all the factors into consideration. You have to look at the whole picture. If we keep Josh Pastner, and I'm picking on Josh here, or all right, if we keep Tubby Smith another year and we don't send him off into the sunset, think about how fortunate Memphis has been with their last two basketball boondoggles. We got Georgia Tech and High Point to take our boondoggles off our hands. And we hired Penny Hardaway, for crying out loud. So now you're in a spot to where you go, okay, if Memphis goes 7-5, I don't think you can pull the plug. I really don't, because that's not a good look. But if Memphis goes
pull the plug at 6-6 either. I think here's what I'll say. I think there needs to be change, but it's not the head coach.
Well, all right, Bryan, what else do you change? You've got a brand new offensive coordinator and a brand new defensive coordinator.
There's other positions that have underperformed the past 3 years.
And I don't disagree. I don't, but
if you're consistently underperforming in that area, I know everything falls on the head coach, but I'm not going to call for someone to be fired, but you have to look at the underperforming areas and that assistant coach of that area and be like, all right, folks haven't improved. Certain players haven't progressed. Something's got to change. I will say Silverfield has got the 3 best recruiting classes ever at Memphis.
But Bryan, he's not developing them. I'm sorry.
He's not you're right. He's not the only coach that develops.
Right. And he again
that Mike Norvell developed every single player at Memphis.
No. But see, here's what the head coach has to do. If the head coach sees that somebody is not developing, then they have to step in and say, okay, and this may be with the coach, this may be with the player. I don't know how Coach Silverfield works. Every coach is different. Mike was very hands-on. If there was something that he didn't like, Mike didn't ask his assistants to do the hard things. Mike would go out and say, hey, and you saw it Saturday. I'm sure everybody has seen the tape now. Florida State is up 38-3. And Mike lit into some poor sophomore wide receiver and tore him up in front of God, man, and country. But then you know what he did? He went over there and he said, hey, I've got your back. I got you. Here's where you went wrong, but I got you. And that is what the head coach has to do. And ultimately, if a business underperforms for 2 quarters, who gets fired? The middle manager guy? The director of IT? Although I can't really say that because I've been fired before. That's another story for another podcast.
It depends on the company, and I could tell you why. I worked at Comcast for many years, and the head of Comcast was still the head of Comcast after plenty. It wasn't 2 quarters. It was multiple quarters in the double digits that person still kept his job. So it really depends on the company. I get
All
your
right.
point, but certain models, certain companies, they fire the lower end and keep the top guy. I'm just saying, I think the problem is not on the square shoulders of Silverfield per se. I mean, he has a lot to do with it. I think you get rid of some of the ones below him, and you'll see if that happens at the end of this year. I think you'll definitely see a different team next year. One, because these recruiting classes, you will start to blossom. To me, I know everyone says, "Well, youth's not an excuse." It is.
Not 9 weeks into the season. I'm sorry, it's not.
Yeah, you're still.
You don't have freshmen, but you don't have freshmen at this point.
But they're still young. You're still young. Just because
Sorry.
The kid is done with us.
Yeah.
Charlotte's had enough.
The point is, you're still young, and you still make mistakes because you're young.
I get both of you are right. The truth is that you're 9 weeks into the season, so you're no longer a freshman, you're a sophomore, you're no longer a sophomore, you're a junior. But the truth is you're still making mistakes. Here's the reality. That has to pay off, and it has to pay off sooner rather than later. And at this point, we are in year 3, which is not, I understand it's still somewhat new, but it's not the first year either. And it's not 2020. And we've had 2 full springs. We've had 2 full fall camps. And the truth is, the cold, hard truth is, guys, is that the team this year is no better than the team last year.
But let's be fair real quick. It's no worse. And that is no worse,
but it's no better. And look, I go back to what I've said from the beginning, and I'd love to. And I actually asked Ryan this question this summer, and if we ever get him back on the show, I'll ask him again. What do you like? Because until we figure out what kind of team he wants, they can't play and develop to that. And that's just a bottom line. And that is 100% what we call culture. You have to have a culture for your team. You have set goals. This is what we do. This is how we're going to do it. And is he a runner? Is he a passing team? What does he want to do? Does he want to play defense? Does he want to be Iowa and score 17 points and win 17-3? Whatever the hell it is, figure it out and coach to it. Recruit to it and coach to it. Because I see somebody that doesn't know what he likes. I'm just being 100% honest.
So, Bryan, back to kind of what you were saying about Comcast. That's an excellent way to make my point. Comcast is now in the crapper. I don't even think they're in the crapper because they allowed that leadership to hang on too long and give them these ridiculous bonuses when you're losing, $12 billion or whatever it was, $4 billion a year. But I'm going to give the CEO another $125 million bonus. And it's like extending these coaches that are 4-8. Like Jeff Scott got an extension at South Florida last year. He won one game against FBS competition, but he got extended. So that's kind of my thing is you have to at some point crap or get off the pot, and you have to make a tough decision. Now, and what's happened in the past is
one full recruiting cycle is all I ask. That's 4 years. It hasn't been 4 years.
But Memphis can't afford to go 4-8 next year. And there's
4-8.
Well, I mean, I'm just throwing it, or 5-7, or whatever, 6-6. Memphis cannot afford to continue that path because we're going to get left behind if we do. Because
Memphis has been left behind.
But no.
I don't. In 5 years, Memphis will still be in the American Conference.
Absolutely. But you know what you can do in the American Conference if you go 10-2?
Yeah.
You go to the playoffs. And yes, you're going to be the 12 seed or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about all that. Justin Fuente said it best how many ever years ago? We are not Coke or Pepsi. We will never be Coke or Pepsi. Even if we got into another league, would money be better? Sure, but it's not, that situation. You have to think long term and say, okay, what year's the playoff? Is it 25, 24, 25? I forget which year it is.
24, isn't it?
We have to position Memphis now for 2024. And Bryan, you bring up a great point that it is about recruiting cycles. And to be fair to Seth, two things. He started as a 18-year-old kid last year. And he was a kid. He looked like a kid, walked like a kid, talked like a kid. I asked him one day, I was like, what were you doing this time last year? He's like, I was getting ready for prom. It wasn't, he didn't come in and have all this greatness and his offensive coordinator left. So now he has to learn a new guy. And I can tell you now, Cramsey calls a completely different game than Kevin Johns did. Cramsey's much more aggressive, in my opinion. Whether that's good or bad, who knows? But the problem you're running into is, yes, ideally in a perfect world, you give somebody 4 years because you want to give them a recruiting cycle. But here's the thing. The guys that you recruited that Mike and that's the other thing people don't realize. Ryan just didn't start suddenly recruiting. He was one of our great recruiters when Mike was here. He was one of the lead guys. Because look, there's something about him. He's great in living rooms. And look, anybody who can recruit the highest rated class in school history over freaking Zoom is a good recruiter. But okay, so the kids you brought in 19, I'm just using Mike's last year as an example. Are they infinitely better? Because somebody asked me the other day, I can't remember how many kids from the Cotton Bowl team are still on this team. Are they infinitely better than they were in 2019? Because now, let's say they were freshmen or redshirt freshmen in 19, they should be on the field now, right? They should be playing and contributing at this point. It comes down to player development. And Bryan, you might be right. There are a couple people, and I'm not going to call anybody out. There are a couple people on this staff that, one, never should have got a job, and two, needed to go last year. But coaches are weird like that. They are very loyal. I was really surprised that Ryan brought in two complete outsiders. I don't think either one of them have ever coached in the South. Neither one of them recruited the South. Matt Barnes is Ohio State through and through. He's a Midwestern guy. Cramsey the same way, Northeast guy. I was really impressed because what that showed is, okay, I'm going to bring in different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
But even a year in, and I understand what people say, well, they're still freshmen. We are 9 games deep in the season. 9 games. We are 3/4 of the way through the season. We haven't seen even micro improvement through the season. Memphis is a mediocre football team. I'll just say it for what it is. They're not great, but look, all you morons that are we're going back to the Larry Porter. Shut up. Shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. But you have to ask yourself, in this environment, what's better? Is it better to be terrible? Or is it, and then you can build from something? Or is it better to be mediocre and not moving?
I don't know.
There's no easy answers, and we're not going to solve it tonight.
Is it better to bottom out or treading water? I think the bottom line is, and here's where treading water is better than bottoming out. Because if you're treading water, the theory is you don't have as far to climb. But in order to climb back, you do have to make a change. You have to change your direction. It may not be the head coach, but you've got to change, whatever it is. And I actually said this on a post, TSR post earlier this week, that I know that we have to have the stomach to make a change of some kind. Something has to happen because the regression is real. And anybody who doesn't believe that is just not watching the game. And the reality is, I don't know what the guys, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm not being paid millions of dollars to find the answer.
I'll leave this comparison. The 2013 team was 3-9. Was that a terrible team?
No. What happened with that team was we had a bunch of CUSA players playing in the AAC.
That's and Justin and the other thing was Justin.
And you have a bunch of young kids.
You did have a bunch of young kids, but you also had
we were cycling
through. We were cycling through some players. So the answer to your question is: was it a bad team? Yes, it was a bad team because they were not physically or mentally ready to play in that conference. So it was a bad team.
You were very, very close of being a bowl team. You lost to Middle Tennessee State 2 points.
No, I remember. I remember because we also and we're not going to bring up the UCF game because then I'm just going to start throwing stuff.
But that was a close. You nearly beat Louisville in Louisville. I mean, you're this close, and that.
But Justin, but here's the difference. Justin was going from nothing, and you could see it coming up. There was a difference. We were being competitive finally, but I'm not going to get into that's.
All I'm saying is the very next year was a huge jump, and I'm saying this team reminds me of that team. Oof. We'll save this, and we'll see if next year Memphis doesn't take a huge jump. My bold prediction will be next year Memphis will be the American Conference champions.
Oh boy!
Well, I mean, I get that, but I will also say this. I don't think bowl eligibility should be the standard at Memphis anymore.
No, I agree.
I don't think that winning 6 games and just barely getting by should be the standard, because here's where the Justin comparison is a little unfair. We had players on the team that their best offer was a Division II school, not 1AA, Division II, that had no business being at the FBS level, just in general. And we didn't have any competency on the coaching staff at none of the spots. So I think this is a little different, but I get your point that we are a young team. However, I will say this. We are in year 3, and it isn't like Ryan came in 2020. And it isn't like he didn't have a hand in 18. I think he got here in 17 or 18. I forget which one. So he had a hand in that recruiting class in 18, 19, and COVID. We'll throw it away. We were 8-3 in 2020. Everybody tends to forget that. But where I think it's different is we're not talking about we stepped up in competition and then we took off the next year because we figured it out. We are stepping down in competition next year. This is going to be 2007 John Calipari next year. Because USF is going to be rebuilding. Tulane's probably going to be rebuilding. They lose like 50, 60% of their team.
Every player, yeah. Every decent player.
Tulsa, if we're being honest, if Memphis wins Saturday,
probably have another coach.
They'll have a new coach. Davis Brent is a senior. They're going to be rebuilding. So Memphis.
I mean, the best, literally outside of us next year. I mean, if you really look at it, ECU has got a new quarterback. I mean, honestly, like we really should win, unless UTSA
will be good.
It will be good. That's what I was going to get into. Honestly, we should win next year because the truth is, we should be the best team in the conference.
Because we will have more experience, right, Bryan? We'll be more experienced. But the problem I have is your juniors and seniors, why are they not on the field? There's a reason you're playing freshmen and sophomores, because either A, they've gone off and left, or B, they aren't good enough to beat out the freshmen and sophomores.
That's your answer.
But okay, but how does that not fall on the head coach? Again, it's not like he came in 2019 and coached the Cotton Bowl it's not like he walked in and that's the first time he's been in the building. He was here for, I think it was 3 years before that.
Yeah, but at that point in time, he wasn't the head coach to say, yes, we want this guy. I mean, that's on Norvell to say. Some of Norvell's kids that he kept, if Silverfield was the coach, would he have kept them? I would say no.
I damn sure would have. We went to the Cotton Bowl, which is the height of what we can do.
We'll have to see what players were on that team or playing now.
Oh, there's not very many. Jeb's already done that.
Yeah.
It's like,
and you've already said throw out the 2020 year because of COVID. Well, then that means you're only talking about 2 years.
But no, because you can't say that he walked in, and I think John said this too. It's not like he came into a firing. He was handed a Cotton Bowl team that was senior laden. You were losing your quarterback. You were losing your top running back, your top wide receiver. But the culture and the recruiting was such that other guys should have stepped in. Like, we're disappointed this year because nobody has really stepped up to replace Calvin. I mean, guys are playing well. When we actually throw the ball to Javon Ivory, he catches it. Eddie Lewis they call him Steady Eddie for a reason.
Yeah.
Priest Corn has come around. Priest Corn was a high school quarterback, and he's one of the top tight ends in the country. He's the only group of 5 tight end on the Mackey semifinal list. But at some point, you have to say, okay, you've recruited all these guys. So if they're not on the field, that's a problem because that means they weren't good enough. And if they're on the field,
I don't think we recruited over their heads, guys. I refuse to believe that.
And if they are good enough, why are they not playing? And are they getting better? Like that.
Yeah,
that's
some are getting better, some are the same. It just the little things that keep happening because we wouldn't be having this conversation. Polk made that interception against Houston. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
Correct.
If we throw the ball to Asa Martin against ECU, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
So to me, because of those plays, it'd be a total different conversation. So all of a sudden they are good enough now.
But if we didn't have the same thing happen to us last year, too, that's my concern. It's not that look. I was one. I chalked it up like, hey, look, last year was just one of those years. Everything kind of broke bad against us. It's doing it again, and it's attention to detail. I've said this over and over. All I can tell you is how many times I would sit there and go, why have we got to go over this play for the 800th time this week? It felt like it. But the truth was, come Saturday, it was rote memory. When they ran that play, it was I didn't have to think about it. I just did it. It was, and I did it exactly the right way. And what I'm seeing is guys that are either not prepared or they are not making the plays when they're in front of them.
When you're like, we're going back to the CEO example, who's for you, John, who had more impact on you, the CEO or your manager?
Well, see, here's something weird about me. I've never worked for a big company, so I can't really fairly answer that. But I will also say that it depends on the person, because to me, I'm a big picture person. I am not good at the day-to-day minutia of being a manager or of doing work. Like, I'm not good. I'm a big picture guy. And I would think now day to day, the manager, absolutely. He's going to have the most impact on my day to day.
And that's where I think the problem lies at Memphis, the quote unquote, the assistants, but it falls back on the head coach.
But 2 years in, we're still missing tackles. We're still running into God knows what when we run into the offense. I mean, we showed photographic evidence earlier. Yeah. We're still doing the same things. And I'll just be blunt, that we crushed Tubby Smith for. that we crushed Josh Pastner for, that the first 2 years of Mike Norvell, we crushed him. Don't forget that, people. Year 2, that I guess that was the
the year 2 we lost, but
the Liberty Bowl year.
But after the UCF game, there were a whole lot of people that were pretty pissed that year.
Yeah, and folks were ready to run him out of town. I don't get that same feeling with Ryan, and I think he gets, and this is probably deservedly so a little bit, he is still getting a 2020 pass because of giving guys an extra year and all that. It threw everybody into a tailspin. But the problem, and that's a great point, the 2016 Tulsa game when they destroyed Memphis in the Liberty Bowl.
That was in first year.
That was in the first half. And guys, you remember me talking about this, Raleigh Ferguson, the switch flipped at halftime of that game, and he was never the same guy again. But, Bryan, your point is valid that sometimes it's the managers. But at some point, things become trends.
Yeah.
And there's a guy, I'll never forget this, when I was running my telecom business. He runs a very successful telecom consultancy. And Jim Suss said, if it's going to impact our business for 6 weeks or less, I don't even look at it. I don't talk about it. I don't think about it. I don't worry about it. If it's going to impact our business for 6 months, I'll put it on the agenda, but I'm not going to spend much time on it. If it's going to impact our business 6 months, or if it's a legacy issue, that's what I spend my time on. We're 2 years in, because again, I'm giving him a pass for 2020 because God knows he earned it. But we're 2 years in, and we still got the same dudes. Other
than the coordinators, right?
And that's why I give Seth a little bit of leeway, because he was really comfortable with Kevin Johns. I think he's comfortable with Coach Ramsey. I haven't seen them interact, so I don't kind of know their interaction. But I think that's the difference, is at what point do you say, okay, the trends are disturbing?
I've always been a firm believer, one recruiting cycle. That's what a coach should have. I don't care how bad the first 3 years go. I want to see the 4th year. I want to see a full recruiting cycle underneath a coach.
So we should have kept Larry Porter for 4 years.
I even wrote an article that Larry Porter should not have been fired. Because of that,
you were wrong about that, because
I can say I was in the minority.
The first game of the Larry Porter era, the first game against Mississippi State, our first 2 snaps were for an illegal procedure penalty. Yes. We lined up, illegal procedure, because we lined up with too many men in the backfield. I think I texted Larry and I was like, this ain't going to work.
Yeah.
And when I wrote in my article, he wasn't given the full support. I mean, he was told.
That is very true.
So that's
100% right.
You can't.
You're 100% right. But neither was Tommy.
What assistants to hire?
But it was. Anyway, I'm not gonna read.
But we won't read that yet. But as why does Silverfield get 3 years of no progress? To me, you have to look at. To me, I look at the areas where obviously recruiting, because I deal with recruiting. That's why I keep saying I want to see one recruiting cycle, because those kids, the best recruiting class in history, next year, they're going to be the seniors.
Okay.
I mean, I can't argue with that in some respects, but all I can say is, okay, fine. You give him another year. If we're sitting here at 6-6 next year, I don't want to hear it.
No, he should be gone.
Because
to me, the 4th year.
Because if we're sitting here and we start the season, we won't. But let's say we start the season 2-4.
See,
that's why I never get this, right? I never get this whole, and we said it earlier, if this coach doesn't win this week, he's probably losing his job. Well, then fire his ass.
Yeah.
Like, it should never, just like I always say it's never about the last play of the game. It's never about, oh, well, he didn't win this game, so he should be fired. Well, that means he should have been fired 4 weeks ago, because when it isn't working, you know it isn't working. But the problem is half of it's working. It's the other half that's not.
Right. We're in the worst case scenario with a guy who's not, and Giannotto wrote this correctly. And you and I've talked about this before. It's not completely bottoming out. He's not completely incompetent. It's not, a Scott Frost situation where they're getting beat by vastly inferior teams. It is sort of working and sort of not.
The biggest problem to me is Silverfield doesn't have Daryl Dickey or Daryl Dickey type.
But whose fault is that?
I seriously question whether that would work.
Whose fault is that? Because Ryan doesn't have the same encumbrances that Larry Porter had. And to be fair, Larry had to have a lot of those encumbrances because he had no idea what he was doing. Ryan's competent. I firmly believe that, because he has got the 3 best recruiting classes in school history, and that cannot be understated. That's hard.
It's the coaching decisions that I question. And
it's more than that. It's preparation, guys. It's preparation. It's because you're seeing a lack of attention to detail. That's not something on Saturday. That's something that happens on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Yeah, it's attention to detail. It's not. And look, we can talk about this till we're blue in the face. The head coach comes up with the practice schedule. The head coach is the guy that comes in. That it may be as a coaching staff, but at the end of the day, it's the head coach's job to come up with the practice schedule. He's the one that says, we're going to do this for this. And the head coach at the end of the day, during the practice, he's the one that says, nope, we need to stay here and run this some more.
Yeah, and each head coach is different, because I would tell you, was your head coach your teacher, or was it your position coach your teacher?
Oh, that's a great question.
And see, for me, I had 2 different head coaches.
Well, one position coach was important, no doubt. But my head coach was a natural coach. Like, he could coach you on anything. He taught me how to cast a fly casting reel. I mean, he could coach you on anything. Like, and so my point in all this is, what I'm seeing is the lack of detail, guys. Is what goes on Monday. It's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday thing. It's not necessarily a Saturday thing. Although he does struggle with game flow,
and that's what I'm saying. He
does struggle with that.
If you're a head coach that is not I don't know, a micromanager may be the bad word for it, but if you're not teaching a direct teacher for every single position, you have to rely on your position coaches to be the teacher. They're the ones that need to instill in you the attention to detail. Because I've had both. I had a coach that he was the micromanager. He went to every single position and was the teacher. And I've also had a coach that, no, the position coaches is the teacher, and the head coach kind of monitors the coaches, not the players. So I've had a little bit of both. That's why I was asking you. And that's why, for me, I'm like, it's more on the position coaches that need to step up their game. Obviously, Silverfield has to step up his game too, because some of these decisions. But for the pay attention to detail and the little things, it's the assistant coaches. And that's why, if it was me, if I'm Laird Veach, I would be like, listen, there's got to be some changes. If you don't want to be the one that's changed, then find some changes.
Well, I'll just say this. The one problem we've had on defense the last 2 years is missed tackles. Can we agree with that? That's been our big problem. If you are playing football at a upper middle level FBS school, I shouldn't have to be taking time to teach you how to tackle. That's just it. Like, that's because that's the part that bothers me about this more than anything. It's the little things and it's the fundamental things. We showed it earlier when we were showing those pictures. Your quarterback has his eyes locked out inside, and he's got guys running free on the outside. And that happens multiple times a game.
And you've got multiple schools. Memphis ain't the only one.
Memphis isn't the only one, but other schools scheme better than Memphis does, and they can cover that up a little bit. Memphis gets very, very predictable when they line up in certain formations. When they line up 1x2, and that 2 is to the short side, it's a run every single time. You go back and watch tape, every single time it's the run. When they line up 4 wide and the back's on the right, it's almost always a run. And so that's your point, Bryan, and it's valid that some of that does fall on the assistants. And you, as a head coach, and again, I hate to keep comparing them, but the comparison is just glaringly obvious. Josh Pastner's biggest problem at Memphis is he didn't have an older coach that he felt like he could trust. Do you know why Memphis basketball has improved so much in the last year and a half?
Larry Brown and mine.
Larry Brown.
It's the guy I didn't want anywhere near our program. And by God, he's been the best thing to happen to Penny Hardaway possible. Because he has seen everything. And Penny trusts him explicitly. Like you can tell during the games that there are times that Penny's sitting down and Larry's coaching. And Larry's getting in guys' faces. And you've got to have that as a head coach. You, especially a young head coach. You have got to have that older hand that you trust. And now that goes back, Bryan, to what we always talk about with money. And you got to pay guys, right? Because you got to pay that older hand. But also, the things that are happening to me don't really fall under teaching as much as they do preparation. I see guys I can tell you why guys miss tackles. They're out of position and they reach. I mean, you go back and you watch all the missed tackles, 96% of them are a guy's 2 steps off the hash and supposed to be on the hash, and he's trying to reach back over and get a guy and he misses the tackle, or he dives and the guy sidesteps him.
And that's a teaching moment.
But we're at the FBS level. And if the guy's in the right spot and he's missing tackles, then he doesn't need to be on the field.
Not for long.
That's what it boils down to is, we've had some bad offensive line play this year, really bad. I will say they have been better the last couple of weeks.
They really have.
I don't know if that's who they're playing and how they play, because it gets complicated. But you mean to tell me that there was nobody better than a couple of those guys sitting over on the bench? Then that's a problem. I just think the problems are
more than just 1 or 2 position coaches.
Yes, and there's a problem. And I am never all you got to do guy. Yeah. I don't pretend that firing Ryan Silverfield is the Pollyanna that some people do. I don't pretend that, because it's just not true.
Yeah, and you hear a lot of time, the fans are like, well, coach so-and-so, that this year, this group of coaches that are available is great. Well, in my opinion, there's always going to be great coaches every single year.
I don't know. This year feels really, really stacked. Well, but you know what? I am so grateful that Liberty extended Hugh Freeze. I am so tired of hearing his name. Because Memphis, somebody said to me, all Memphis has got to do is pay him $6 million a year.
Is that all?
That's all. People have no understanding of how the business of sports works. That's a whole podcast of. Yeah, there are literally podcasts.
This offseason, we'll do that podcast.
Oh my God! Yeah, we'll get somebody smarter than me in here. But anyway, so we've gone for 2 hours tonight, way longer than we thought. But there's a lot to talk about. We have a lot of concerns. There are no easy, simple answers here, guys. There are no quick fixes. This is not a get rich quick scheme. If you fire the coach, the guy you bring in next year is not going to win 11 games.
Nope.
Because there's a lot of examples like that.
They might. Yeah, the next year the conference is terrible.
Yeah, they come in next year and they win 11 games, and then we figure out they can't recruit, and they win. They go 11, 8, 6, 4.
Right. No, it's always possible.
How long did it take East Carolina to recover from Ruffin McNeil's firing?
Yeah, they finally got the right guy, though. Holy cow, that guy's a good coach.
Tennessee, took, same thing. How long did it take to, before when you got rid of?
And they didn't want to hire him.
Yeah, that was a very unpopular hire. But I mean, I get what you guys are saying, and I understand it. But also, I want people to understand there are no simple answers. Yeah. There is no, we're not suddenly going to become the 2019 Memphis Tigers. Like, that's not happening. Even if we win Saturday or Thursday, that's not happening. Like, this isn't going to be fixed overnight. It's just, how do we fix it? That's the $1 million question here, is how do we fix it? And hell, I don't know. But like Larry said, we're not being paid millions of dollars to figure it out. We're just three dummies with a podcast that think we can change the world. But anyway, so that's going to do it for a very extended edition of Tigers Tonight this week. For the best co-hosts in all the land, Bryan Moss and Larry Marley. John Maddox signing off, saying we'll see everybody next week.